Good. Thought I'd show you some of my technique in pruning. So what I'd like to do first is demonstrate how I do this. You have two water sprouts essentially coming out of the same place, and this was cut a few years ago, I guess, and it has developed a healing ring. However, these water sprouts have gone and sprouted along the place where the healing ring began. So what I do is the cutting blade goes under, almost always as usual, and you work it up, try to get it as close to the bark as you can, and you come up with it and it comes right off. And the same goes with the other one. You try to get as close as you can. Boom. Now, what you can do in this case, if you're real particular, is you can take a grinder or a file or a belt sander and sand this flat. And what that does is it eliminates or greatly reduces an occurrence that you just saw. In other words, this won't here, I'm not going to do anything else on this, but what it does is it eliminates or greatly reduces the chance of any more suckers, water sprouts, from developing on this site. Okay, on this site here, on the side of the tree, we have some gangly, broken, all broken up, essentially just suckers. And I'm doing this so you can see them. There's 3 or 4 of them just coming out onto the side of the tree. And a lot of times when they're this small, you can just break them off with your hand. But some of them are just too thick. So what I do is I come along and do this with my hand shears. Again, keeping in mind that the best technique for doing this is to make sure that the blade is on the other side of the anvil, as opposed to this, which will not allow you to get as close to the bark as you can. So it's always better just to do it this way. I hope you can follow it, my explanation. Again, I'm not too concerned with precision. I just want to get the job done as best I can. And as you can see, it's looking pretty good. And chances are, as the season progresses, I'll probably get some more sprouts coming out of there. But that's part of the business. And here we have some more coming up here. And what I'll do is I'll just come in and do the exact same thing, making sure that the blade is on the tree side of the anvil, not the other way around. Okay? And these particular shears allow you to, because the handles are so big, they allow you to use both hands. You have to. And I'm trying to, I hope this is coming out clearly. But anyway, I'm going to do these two so that you can see my technique. Now they're about little over ½ inch in diameter, but they're close to an inch at the base, which is what I'm concerned with. So I had to use both hands on that. This one, sometimes you just have to turn it, like use it like a knife, you know, like you're cutting onions in the kitchen. You just kind of work that thing in, and it helps you to do the job. Now this curved branch that you can see right there, this curved branch, by the way, was left there probably 3 years ago, and I was anticipating it growing like it did because I wanted it as a scaffold branch. And what I mean by a scaffold branch is that is going to bear the weight of the load of fruit that eventually, hopefully, will grow on this tree, at least on that branch. So I'm going to leave that, but the smaller ones that are growing out the base of it, they've got to go. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'll get these too while I'm at it. I don't want these here. And pruning apple trees is a long-term proposition. You have to, it always helps to plan for the future, but there's no need to worry about it because these things are always going to come, and you can always wait for next season and see what develops on these scaffold branches, and that's what I do anyway. Now, as you can see, that branch has a lot of water sprouts on it, but some of them are kind of thick and they're in the right place. So I'm going to try to save off about 6 inches of about half of the good sized ones and hope that they develop into what are known as fruiting spurs. So I'll show you what that is up close on another tree. Okay, these are what we call fruiting spurs, and they tend to get bigger and bigger as the seasons go by, but you don't want to take these off. Indeed, you want to cultivate their growth. And as you can see, they're shaped totally different from this kind of a bud. See, as you can see, these buds are kind of large, and those are going to be flowers. Whereas these particular ones here, as you can see, they're very small. They're almost invisible, but they're there. Those are just buds that are going to turn into leaves. Here's another example. Whereas over here on this side, you can see against the sky. I'll kind of back out. Observe the relatively large size of the bud, and they are destined to become flowers and hopefully apples. So again, what you have here are buds that are going to turn into leaves, whereas Yeah, I'm still kind of learning about this camera. I don't know if this is coming out or not. I can't really see. But these buds here, they're very different. So these are fruiting spurs, whereas these are like vegetative type spurs, which will grow into branches. Okay, what we have here is another good example of a branch, a little branchlet, or whatever you want to call it, that is on a main scaffold branch that is going to produce fruit. And it's shaped totally differently than something like this, with the small buds that are almost invisible. Well, you have this one here that are large buds that happen to, they're just totally of a different nature. There's another variation on that, and if you can see the difference between these branches, see how they're thin and they kind of want to go straight up, whereas the ones that are going to be fruit bearing are shaped like that, right in the center of the screen right there. Okay, this is a little bit of a diversion in the topic, but as you can see, this tall, slender maple tree is kind of like a representative of what we have up here in the Endless Mountains. They grow tall and thin, and they have strangely shaped branches. This one happens to be, I believe this is a black maple. I'm trying to focus here. Got this thing on macro, so I hope this comes out good. But as this is being a maple, it's a totally different kind of a tree. And when you prune these trees, you want to wait till midsummer at least, because if I were to cut this right now, the next warm sunny day that hits this tree is going to start to bleed sap. And although that's not real dangerous, it's unsightly, and it's not called for. And the sap will eventually run down the side of the tree and attract insects, so we don't want that. But again, this kind of tree, a maple tree, you want to prune this if you have to. You want to prune these type of trees in summertime when the leaves are fully out and the sap stops flowing. This one has a little bit of damage on the lower trunk. Here's a good example of a tree starting to recover from a wound. This was obviously used by a deer to create a rub. And the healing, oh, see that? There's an example of what you don't want. That's an insect cocoon, or at least it was an insect cocoon. But anyway, this is something you want to avoid. There's another one. But it's healing away, it's healing up quite nicely. This light colored inner bark is nothing to concern with, but it's the healing process that the tree is going through. And anyway, that's a little bit more in line with this series. a little bit of knowledge that I accumulated. And I hope you people that are watching this can benefit from it. Here's some more apples. I'm slowly trying to work my way back from this point at the road, from this point down to the break in the brush. There's a lot of brush in here, a lot of hardhack. But there's also a lot of berry bushes that I'm trying to conserve. And here's one of them. It's a huckleberry or wild blueberry. And as you can see, it's got the reddish bark, which distinguishes it from the hardhack. This is a hardhack bush, kind of like the cultivated viburnum. See if I had this thing on Zoom. But anyway, that's a viburnum. That's a wild version of the cultivated variety. There's another one. Actually, excuse me, this is a desirable huckleberry. Whereas this, wait a minute now. Now I'm kind of confused. But yeah, this is a berry bush. Here's a good example of what are known as witch's broom, and it's a viral infection that's almost impossible to get rid of. I've not heard anybody, I've not read any material anywhere that allows you to get rid of this. They say that once you have it, that's it. You basically have to rip up the shrub, get rid of it, and plant some new ones. But I don't see any problems with this. It doesn't bother me. And these bushes produce delicious fruit anyway, so yeah, it's time for me to prune this thing anyway. I'll probably get to it one of these days. I've got probably 5 or 6 acres here that are cleared, and there's just so much that one man can do. And here's another example of that witch's broom. I don't know what they call it. I call it witch's broom. It's just a viral infection that spreads to each shrub, and they look like little birds' nests. I don't know. They're kind of neat. They're covered by by the leaves in the summertime anyway. So anyway, these are my berry bushes, and between the berry bushes are more apples, and I'm slowly uncovering them. Coming out here. I switched the battery in this camera, so it's got a little bit more juice. And all of this eventually will be cleared around the trees and the shrubs that I want to keep. And hopefully, as my finances allow, I'll fence in part of this area and get some goats. See, here's a clump of apples that come up by themselves. They come up as a result of the birds spreading the seeds. Or deer. Probably more likely a deer. Come down here. Check this out. In the summer and in the fall, it's quite a spectacle. These are aspen. A little grove of aspen, not much, but they put out quite a show in the summer. In the late fall, as the breeze hits the leaves, they flutter. There's probably 15 or 20 decent aspen trees. I'm going to get rid of some of the smaller ones. They're just not healthy. And there's the power line going back to the house. And that pole is leaning right there. That's my boundary. That's my property line. Close up of the aspen. Quaking aspen, I believe they are. And I'm slowly clearing this place out, making room for the stuff that I need to go back here. This is where I plan on putting some small stock, putting up a portable electric fence, maybe even getting a red pole. I hear that's a good milking cow. And might get some ducks, domestic ducks. We'll see. We'll see how the finances turn out next season. Party time. That was my fire pit from last season. We had a little bit of a late fall cookout down here at the ridge. This is where it drops off, and it basically becomes a dry wash most of the year. There's a little bit of water that flows there in the early summer, but it pretty much dries out. And this is my cherry grove. It's nice down here in the summertime. Southern exposure comes in, and the midday sun really lights this place up. It looks pretty good. Anyway, the wind stopped, but it looks like we're starting to get a little bit of wet snow or sleet. I don't know which, but it's a very fine snow. And usually when you see this fine snow happen, it's going to continue on for a bit. We may even get some accumulation. I don't know. The old cherry tree fell last year. The old gentleman just couldn't handle it. It had some wind. Just busted it all up. I'm real surprised it wasn't a bee tree. As far as I know, this thing is hollow. At least going up part of the way. There's the hole. And this whole area has dust underneath the logs. You can see here's the dust. So there's a critter in there. undoubtedly. But all of these rounds are too gnarled to split. Otherwise I would have done it. Some of them have rot, too much rot. Not even worth it. So I'll probably end up just chucking them in the burn pile. And this old maple seen better days too. There's only a few branches that are alive. It gave me some firewood for last season, that's for sure. But these two trees have some hidden dangers in them because they were part of a fence line. So I don't know, I'm just going to leave them to rot and fall over. I'm not going to even try to cut these things down. That's how you wreck your chainsaw. Anyhow, that's a little bit of a walkthrough here, late winter. We're entering into an early, what looks like a cool spring. Yeah, nice and peaceful out here when it's snowing and gray and cold. Real beautiful. Well, thanks for watching. Catch you later.